I wanted to do a little demo for you on how you can bracket your images and make them, um, merge them together in HDR, high dynamic range, so that you can get a really good exposure. This is exceptionally helpful if you're shooting in less than ideal light conditions where maybe the the sun isn't shining directly on your subject. This is great for landscapes where a lot of you, I'm sure, have had problems with if you want to get the foreground in focus, your sky is blown out. If you want to get your sky looking good, your foreground is underexposed. And this is really easy to do, and I think it would be very helpful. So I just want to show you real quick. This last week, I went to Arches National Park in Moab, Utah, and just to show you what kind of damage I did in 2 days. With bracketing, I shot over 4,000 photographs. Now, I did one shot of overexposed, one shot of underexposed, and one shot as metered for each picture that I took. So that, really filled up a couple of memory cards. But, even with the bracketing, I still shot something like 1,300 images just in a couple of days. And you have to take a lot of pictures to get just a few good ones. So I wanted to show you, I think this is a good picture to kind of demonstrate. Let me see here. Yeah, here's the picture shot as metered. And you can see the sun just wasn't quite. We kind of missed the ideal moment to photograph this structure. This is called Delicate Arch, and it's supposed to be the big National Geographic shot that everybody gets when they go to Arches National Park, and we just kind of didn't hit it at the ideal time of day. But here's how it photographed as metered. Here's how it photographed underexposed, and here's how it photographed a little bit overexposed. So you can see the sky looks really cool in the underexposed, and the foreground somewhere in between as metered and overexposed looks good. But anyway, what I'm going to do, I'm in the develop module in Lightroom. I'm going to select all three of those photos, and then you go to Photo Merge, HDR. Okay, and you have to give it a minute. It's going to give you this screen right here. I just leave it set on none. You can see it takes a moment to take the three images and merge them together. While it's merging, I will say that my camera has an auto bracket function on it, which I'm fortunate. I have a Nikon D7100, and since it's a little bit of a fancier model, I can actually set it to bracket either 3 or 5 images. With 5 being like 2 underexposed and 2 overexposed. I just use 3. If you don't have a fancier camera, you may have to manually bracket by changing either your aperture or your f-stop, going into manual and stepping it down one stop and stepping it up one stop, and that makes it a little bit harder. You might have to use a tripod if that's the case, because it makes it a little harder to catch the exact same images with 3 different exposures. So if you do have a fancier camera with auto bracket, by all means use it. If you don't, I really recommend a tripod for this, or else your 3 exposures are going to probably not be identical. Okay, so anyway, it has finally processed the 3 images. I'm just going to click merge. It takes a moment. You can see up here it's creating the HDR, so I have to wait for that to happen. When it does, it's going to create another picture is going to show up down here on my film strip. And so just have to be patient. And what I'm hoping to get, let's see here. Here it is. You can see the little icons here showing me that this is the HDR version of the three photographs, and it names it. If you look right here, you can see that it gives it the same file name as one of the photographs, and it's instead of being an NEF, which is the Nikon version of RAW, it names it a DNG, which stands for digital negative. It's also RAW. Now, I'm still not completely happy with this picture. The rocks in this park are, when the lighting is right, are like this beautiful, intense, glowing, orangish red color, and I still feel like the lighting that we had that day, unfortunately, there was a little bit of a haze in the air, and we just didn't get that glowing effect that we wanted. So I'm going to cheat in Photoshop. And what you can do, again, this is an easy way to transition from Lightroom to Photoshop. Go to Photo, and then go Edit in Adobe Photoshop, and it'll open your RAW file in Photoshop. Give it just a second. It's got to think about it. Okay, so here we are in Photoshop. It's still a RAW file. You can see DNG right here. And I'm going to do a little trick. Let's say I'm happy with the sky the way it is, okay? But I would like for the rocks to be more warm. And so I'm going to take my quick selection tool. You know what I think I'm going to do? I think I'm going to just try it on the arch itself. Let me see. Maybe I'll go ahead and leave the background kind of plain. It's going to be a little bit more tricky to do this. Let's see. This quick selection tool is great. It's not always the perfect tool. Sometimes you have to do a few more things to get a good selection, but I'd say that selection there is pretty good. So what I'm going to do now, I don't want to do any permanent damage to this this photograph, right? I want to be able to come back and make edits to it whenever I want. So I'm going to create what is called an adjustment layer. And if you look over in your layers palette, whenever you're in Photoshop, the one palette that you should always have showing is your layers. If you can't see it, it's under window. You just put a check by layers right there. Okay, you always need to be able to see your layers palette. This little icon here is your adjustment layer. And I click on it, and I've got all these different options. Sometimes I change the exposure a little bit, but what I'm going to change right now is the vibrance setting. Okay, and here what pops up is you've got two sliders, one for vibrance and one for saturation. Vibrance is a lot more subtle, and I tend to use it a little more, so you can see I'm dragging the slider to the right, and you can see how I'll just drag it all the way to the right, which is too much, but you can see how that's brightening up those reds just a little bit, and it's also making the arch stand out from the background a little bit more. I'm going to give it quite a bit of punch here, and then maybe I'll just give it a couple of clicks on the saturation. I don't really want to do too much, okay, because I'll just show you. If I take the saturation all the way over, it looks terrible. So I think I had it on about +6. and I thought it looked pretty good. Okay, so there we go. I think that looks better. Now, one other thing I'm going to try to do. I don't know if it's going to work on a raw file or not. I think it will. It's almost impossible to get a picture of this photograph. I'm sorry, get a picture of this arch without people in it. Because everybody wants to go down there and stand under the arch and have their picture taken. And since I'm so far away from the arch, the two people here, they just look like little specks. And I'm gonna try to get rid of them with the spot healing brush tool. I'm gonna zoom in on them just a couple of clicks. I don't know for sure if it's gonna work, but I'm gonna give it a try. Spot healing brush tool. Okay, let me make if it doesn't work with the spot healing brush tool, maybe the healing brush tool. You know what, I think I changed my mind. I think I'm gonna go to the healing brush tool. Let's see here. I have to option click a part of the background that I want to cover them with. Not working. Okay, let me try the spot healing brush tool. Oh, you know why it's not working? Because I wasn't on the right layer. Silly me. Okay, let's see what happens with the spot healing brush tool first. They're pretty much gone. That worked pretty well. I'm going to undo it, and I just want to see the difference if I use the healing brush tool. And here I have to sample some of the background, and it's option click, and then I start painting over them, and it's actually painting part of the background that I've chosen to get rid of them. No, that didn't work as well, did it? Okay, so let's go back to the spot healing brush tool, and I'm just going to make my brush a little bigger by clicking on the right bracket key, and I'm just going to drag my brush across these people. This is really only working because they're super small. Okay, that looks pretty good. I'm going to zoom out. Okay, and they're gone. They're not there anymore. So I've commented to a couple of you that I found, like, say, telephone wires or electrical wires in your photographs that were distracting. It's that easy to get rid of them. Okay. So that's all there is to that. I think my picture looks a lot better with just a couple of easy edits. I'd like you to try this too. Bracketing is the key to getting this high definition, high dynamic range. Effect in your photographs. It's especially helpful for landscapes. So I hope you give this a try.